Okay, so today I have the really good pleasure of having Dr. Ozkul here. We have been friends now for many years. Seckin is a faculty in the School of Supply Chain and Innovation and Marketing at USF. He leads the Supply Chain Innovation Lab. At USF, he was appointed to the Florida Trade Advisory Committee and have been advising the state in trade matters. And he has a diverse background and basically have reached his expertise and the type of project that he targets. So we're pretty happy having, especially today with us, and for all of yours.
Thank you, Miguel. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I think my watch is still in Tampa time, so I'm realizing that I can say good afternoon, not like nearly good evening for our East Coast folks. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. If you haven't signed in, there's a QR code. Please sign in. Right, so we do the same thing in ours. Don't worry. We know the drill.
I forgot to mention that.
Would it be helpful?
So, as Professor Haller said, we've been good friends. We've been friends when we were in grad school, and then we carried that into our careers. The friendships that you make here are really, really important for you, right? So when I was in undergrad, is everyone in this room grad students, or we have some undergrads as well?
Undergrad,
right?
couple.
There are some undergrads, maybe a couple. And we used to have these professors come and give speeches at our universities. And being on this side of the room is interesting, right? You go like, wow, these people have all these titles and then these little acronyms or PE, professional engineer, PhD. Wow, that must be so nice. And all that. Suddenly you blink and then you're on this side of the room, and then there are newer faces on the other side of the room, right? So we're all friends here, right? Students of today are colleagues of tomorrow. I always say to all my students, right? So no intimidation. We are here to have a discussion. If you see something here that you're interested in, or you're like, oh my God, I don't like what you're saying, I'm gonna make a comment, you can't say that, right? So please raise your hand. I want this as interactive as possible. I do realize it's after lunchtime and it's a cold day and rainy. You may want to doze off. I will not pick on you. Don't worry. If you're gonna doze off, just doze off. It's okay. I understand. I don't take anything to heart, so it's all good. But we're gonna talk about supply chains in motion. I know already a couple of you have said, oh, I work on supply chains. I like supply chains. And some people before, we didn't know what supply chains are, right? We talked about freight. We talked about logistics. And then COVID happened. And everyone suddenly said still all those cool things. And then they also talk about supply chains suddenly, right? When we went to the market and we did not see some of the things that we don't wanted to see, right? And then we are now going these days, I don't know, in Florida, we are having this issue. And I'll ask Miguel, how are the egg situations? Did we see any rise in the egg prices?
They're pretty expensive.
So, right, eggs are suddenly like gold, right? You can go to someone's wedding and give them 18 eggs or something as a wedding gift. So you can do those kind of things, right? I'll tell you a little bit about my background. So first of all, let me thank my host, Professor Miguel Haller. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure being here and really giving this speech. I'm going to talk about supply chains in motion, a journey through research, because that's all we do. But we hope that some of the research that we do also has some real world solutions or implications as well, right? They are being used by some entities like the DOTs or the mayor's office or whatnot, maybe at the presidential level, if we are real lucky, the policy making level, they are using some of the research that we're doing. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about a potpourri of some of the research that we have done at the USF Supply Chain Innovation Lab. I am the founding director. Had a lot of help, so I can't get really all the credit, but I've been leading it for the last 4.5 years now. When everyone was going into lockdown COVID mode right after 2020 March-ish, depends on if you were in China back then, maybe you're thinking of, no, that was 2019 December. Yes, you're right, but actually as the impact bullwhip effect itself into the US, we were looking around March of 2020 when back then President Trump and current president also went on TV and said, we are locking the country down, no one's leaving, no one's coming in. And I would know something about this because 2 days after, I was supposed to go to Brazil to visit Claudio. And I said, I guess I'm not going anywhere. Anyway, so that happened. And suddenly supply chains were everywhere, right? Because we realized, and some things that people blamed on supply chains, but they really meant operations management. But we're not going to get into that topic here, right? Capacities and all that. That's not exact supply chain, but they said, supply chains, because that was a cool hype term that they wanted to get into. All right, so I'm an assistant professor in supply chain management at University of Florida, Muma College of Business, at the Monica Wooden Center for Supply Chain Management and Sustainability. Mouthful, right? I sometimes mess this up when I'm saying.
I already did it.
I don't know that I added this, right? So the lab is young, 4.5 years old. We've been doing a lot of research, thankfully. I'm going to show you some of the funded research initiatives that we've been doing. We, of course, did also some non-funded research on published publications and all that. And I'm going to show you a portfolio of some of the research that we did. So you can start thinking of some interesting other things that we are doing on the other side of the pond, right? Or not the pond, but the whole continental US, I guess I should say, because I'm used to saying, giving speeches in Europe, I guess I should stop saying that. So just to give you a background, before I get into my teaching, I have an undergrad in civil engineering at Auburn University in Alabama, a master's in civil engineering from University of South Florida, where I currently serve as a faculty member, a PhD from University of Florida in Gainesville, go Gators, right? I'm a mess, right? Tigers, Bulls, Gators, oh, good Lord. And then I got another master's when I moved to the College of Business because I didn't want to be the guy who didn't have a business degree there. So I got a master's in marketing with supply chain concentration because we didn't have a MS in supply chain management, but we do now. So if you want to come to Florida, you can apply for a master's in supply chain management, all right? But we are proud. USF is a young university founded in 1956. 19, yes, it is right. But we just recently got into AAU, Association of American Universities, which your university, your amazing UC Davis University, is a member of, right? This is the top teaching and research universities in the United States. If you look at that list, AAU, you go to their website, you're gonna know a lot of those universities and say, wow, USF, I did not know that, right? So we have been proud and doing some good work. And we are happy to, of course, collaborate with UC Davis on some future research that we're working on together, hopefully with Professor Haller. I have an engineering background, but I found myself landsliding with economical impacts of supply chains and freight transportation and logistics, and moved to the College of Business side of things. So I'm teaching different classes than I used to. I used to teach transportation engineering, 1, 2, all those kind of different classes. But with my analytical background, I am teaching our analytics course for our Masters of Supply Chain students. That is the Logistics Systems and Analytics course, where we are looking at SAP usage, right? The big companies using the ERP software that they use. We look at Excel codings. How do we code Excel to basically give us the results? And now, of course, those people are like, Excel, what are you, crazy? Yes, the mom and pops are still using it, but I just introduced this past fall AI as well. How do we tell AI what we want to do with a certain set of data that it can maybe run some analysis? But of course, I'm not just making it that easy, right? Because I know the students are going to run it anyways using AI. But I'm asking them to compare their AI runs with the Excel runs so they understand both and also know what AI knows and it doesn't know, right? So because there are limitations to usage of AI. I teach continuous improvement, Lean Six Sigma. You must have heard of this term and maybe some of you wondered what that means. It has two components, right? Lean and then Six Sigma. As engineers, we are really good at the Six Sigma components, and the lean side, the management persons normally do that the best, right? But we combine that Lean Six Sigma and try to get rid of all the excess waste within my company, right? If you're interested, I'm happy to talk to you about that. I teach a master's level operations management quality enhancement from time to time. I should say this is an MBA type of a class. And for undergrads, I used to teach because I can only teach so much supply chain analytics. This is for our undergrad students. And this operations and supply chain management class is also for our undergrad students as well. So I teach two classes at the moment at the Masters of Supply Chain Management level, and one class for our undergraduate students, mainly analytics type of courses at the Mumma College of Business. To give you an idea of what we've been doing in the lab is an entity that we are basically utilizing grad students, postdocs, and we're looking to hopefully hire a PhD student in the upcoming near future also. But we've been working with private and state entities and also national entities and developing the different projects. You'll see some of them are on truck parking design, feasibility analysis, optimization, location optimization. Where do we place some of these facilities to research the effectiveness of AI tools in training supply chain and logistics employees for a Fortune 500 company, right? I cannot share their name, but they are a huge one, right? Even if I share their name, you may not know who they are, but they are Fortune 500. There are companies in that list, such as this, right? So we also did, again, the truck staging needs. This is a short-term truck parking. The needs are different than full-blown truck parking facilities. So we looked at that for Florida Department of Transportation as well. We completed a US DOT project, cargo consolidation, routing, and location optimization to reduce traffic congestion by minimizing the overall freight trips that are generated, the VMTs and whatnot. And that was a UTC, US DOT funding that we received. And some more projects. So, but if you can see, all of this started with this right here, where we were funded a small seed to be able to brainstorm about this lab. Can you come up with an entity where it's like a think tank? You have some faculty members, you have great young minds such as yourself, grad students who are working on some of these issues. And then we have some industry partners who know what the real issues are, what the pain points are, that they can actually give us feedback and guidance to which direction that we can possibly go with all of these. So we start with this seed funding. All of these projects that I showed you are the last 4 years or so that we've been working on them. The two that I shared are ongoing, these two, and then everything else on this list have been completed. I heard land use used a lot, land use, freight generation, freight-friendly land users and all that good stuff. We are also doing some of that on the other side of the continental United States as well, right? So because our worries have matching components. I also serve at TIB together with your professor here, Miguel. I say get involved with TIB. It's a great organization. I do not know how many of you are going. I know some of you are going for sure because I know you in person. But if you're not, get involved. If you are going to be in transportation and you are a grad student and your work is funded and there's funding to go to TIB, go to TIB. It's really cool. You'll get to know people. You'll make friendships that last for quite a while, and you'll be talking about similar issues that worry the whole transportation and logistics community. I'm a member of the Freight Systems Group that basically all of the committees actually fall under in the freight side. I'm also the chair of the Standing Committee on Freight Transportation Economics and Regulation, which Miguel actually is a committee member of. We are happily serving on that together, and we've served on this committee for quite a while until you hit the term limit, unfortunately, right? And I'm about to get to the term limit in 2 years, but I'm also a member of the Standing Committee on Urban Freight Transportation as well at TIB. Check that out. So here we go, right? I was told that I don't have to hold you here until all the way to 3 p.m., right? And I said, no, I'm gonna do it. I'm going fast and I'm dynamic, but you're gonna have to interject and say, hey, I have a question, I wanna talk to you, right? And then we can also talk later, but please get my attention. My group uses a lot of ArcGIS. I'm sure that some of you are familiar with this. There's a lot of good data out there that you can actually show with one picture of what's going on. Right? We ran a study called Logistics-Led Economic Development and figuring out optimal logistics activity center locations. Where can you build such big facilities like Amazon warehouses and whatnot, right? And then we ran a criteria that we developed through discussing this with freight professionals, freight planners, and also some US DOT representatives. We developed the criteria, then we built everything in different rasters to determine what areas, what sites are really good in Florida for logistics activity center development, has a high potential. And then what FDOT, the Department of Transportation, was interested in was, hey, can you show me some major corridors that these are clustering around? Because if you can tell me that, I can make good investments into that corridor, bring the freight friendliness in, because what's my main issue sometimes in logistics? The ingress, egress, right? Getting trucks in and out of a certain location. So they were really interested in these kind of major freight corridor analysis, and also the economic entity in Florida ran an initiative called Florida is Open for Business, right? What does that mean? If you're a business, you want to come to Florida, don't go to Georgia because they stink. No, okay, that was a joke. I'm being recorded, I know, sorry, that was a joke. So they said, come to Florida, right? So then you can show them, hey, look at all these sites that we already ran analysis on that are amazing, that you can really have a great accessibility with your trucks in and out, and you have great connectivity to the rest of the world because we have world-class ports. We have great CSX, the rail class 1 railroads that can connect you to the rest of, from Atlanta to everywhere else, right? From Florida to Atlanta to everywhere else. They said, okay, we're listening. So we did that project for them. We were able to look at land uses as well to determine if they have freight-friendly land uses. They said, wow, this looks great. It has a high LAC development potential, but it has a residential land use. Can you build freight facilities there? No, you cannot. And if you try to do it, people will come with pitchforks, right? They can shut your project down. You bet they can, right? So try rezoning that. Good luck. So we were trying to come up with some low-hanging fruits of what some of these Florida Open for Business sites can look like, that they can market this. And also the FDOT is interested in those freight corridors to make them as freight-friendly as possible. This was a project that we did with Texas A&M University, Texas Transportation Institute. So I always call them TAMU, then they don't like me. But TTI and I, we wrote a proposal for an NCFRP project. These don't exist at the moment because there's no funding. It was approved, but it was not appropriated through the Congress. So therefore, these don't exist at the moment. But when they used to, we worked on a national project called Implementation of Effective Metropolitan Freight Transportation Strategies, where we came up with 30 metropolitan freight strategies that actually fall under some major areas: incentives, vehicle-based, logistical, technological, so on and so forth. And we came up with some barriers, facilitators, or some stops. What can actually stop you trying to implement this great strategy that you came up with, right? So we looked at both sides and came up with a full report. You can actually download this at the TRB website. But this was a national level project that we did before COVID, right? So really the lab, it wasn't a part of the lab, but it was a previous project. Now, what has been a part of the lab? So we're doing a little bit of a potpourri of what we've done, right? So we look at freight planning projects, which I just showed you, the NCFRP. The previous one is also a planning project where we looked at land use and LAC development potential. And this one was modeling a supply chain network for a new type of biofuel. But this did not exist. It still doesn't. They are trying to work on it. But they came to us as a supply chain professional and they said, can you let me know how much the logistics of a supply chain that I want to build is going to cost? Why do I want to do that? Why would I want to care about the cost of a business that I haven't started yet? Who cares, right? Just jump in. If I know my cost, I know how much I can sell this for, right? This is where the culture of business comes from, right? I know how much revenue I can make out of this. I know my costs. Hopefully I have an idea of the demand, how much I'm going to sell this for, right? My goods. If I have the demand, I have the revenue, how much I'm going to sell it for. I know my cost. I can calculate what? Profit. Thank you, right? Profit. If I can calculate my profit, I know if I'm in business or I am not in business, right? So they came to us and they said, we like this idea, right? Non-fossil fuel, right? It's going to be out of a plant. We're going to see in a second. But we want to make money out of it, right? We're not in business just for fun, right? So I said, okay, we can do that. That's not a problem. So what did we try to do? This is called carinata, right? For those of us, I'm going to date myself by saying this reminds me of the fields that we watched in the movie Gladiator. When he was walking around, right? I dated myself. I know it's a good movie if you haven't watched it. That's my personal opinion. So this is carinata fields, but once you harvest this, I don't care about all these beautiful flowers. I care about not for the business sense, right? I'm not going to sell these flowers, so I really want to split the seed out of these beautiful flowers. And once I get the seed, I can crush it. Oil comes out of it. I send it to a biorefinery. I make it go through some processes, and it becomes biofuel. Right? Interesting. And then what are these guys? I get this biofuel. Oh, the Blue Angels are interested in it. Gulfstream, the private jets are interested in it. So there's some business out there that I can sell this product to. What are these guys doing? What's going on with these guys? They eat the crushed component of it. Heard of a term called circular what? Okay. Circular economy. Oh, nothing goes to waste. When I was young, right? Most of you were not there when I was young because I'm a little older. We had circular economy, right? Your TV broke down. You didn't just buy a new TV. You took it to a guy to fix it, right? And then now we have the or a girl. Or a girl. Sorry. Yes, correct. Yeah. You know what I mean. I don't think like that, right? I don't think like that. I'm gender neutral. When I say guy, I mean guy, girl. These guys eat this too. So circular economy. Sadly, I really wanted to analyze this component too because guess who wants to pay for this? This is organic. Guess who wants to pay for this? This was supposed to be planted and harvested in southeastern United States. But guess where they wanted to sell this and it was going to still make money? France. Going to ship it all the way from southeastern United States all the way to Europe and still make money out of this because it was organic. All right, but we couldn't get a chance to look at that. We only got a chance to look at the biofuel. This project was funded by USDA, FAA. I know they are not. They are trying to figure a lot of things out right now, and we are supporting them. That's a big tragedy that our country went through very recently. So I just want to take a moment, but we're supportive of hopefully they figure out and we improve things. US DOT Volpe Center in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Department of the Navy, and also the Gulfstream jets. This project was funded by a lot of good efforts. So we want to develop a bottoms-up analysis. A bottom-up analysis basically is there's nothing exists, and we are trying to build a supply chain, right? There's nothing exists. There's no supply chain. We're trying to figure it out. We used a product called FTOT, which was originally developed by the USDOT Volpe National Transportation System Center back in 2015. They keep on improving this product. So we formed a partnership with them to be able to produce an optimal supply chain network using the FTOT tool that I'm going to share with you in just a second. Our first starting point was set origins and ultimate destinations. But which ones you're going to say, right? And I'm going to say all of them. And then you're going to say, that's a very large network. And I'm going to say, yes, it is, right? So now you realize all the things that can happen, right? You can actually, we're going to talk about what goes in this. Then I'm going to say, okay, all these, and there's a lot of them, but what are some potential processing points? I harvested, so I need to know the farms. That's my raw material producer, right? From the farms, the crop and the flower, they need to go to a handler, a farm handler, where it needs to be separated. So I get my seeds. Then the seeds needs to be transported from the handler to the crusher. At the crusher, I have to crush it. Now I have the remainder of the seed, and I have the oil. I care about the remainder of the seed, but not for this project. I care about the oil. Then I take the oil, I send it to a biorefinery. Then at the biorefinery processes, then what? I get naphtha, jet fuel, diesel, and then what? I have to sell it, right? I need money. So now I need to also send it from the biorefinery all the way to my end user, and we're gonna see how that looks like in a second. Then we need to identify best routes. Now I have all my potential processing points. I have to identify best routes for each of these OD pairs. What do you mean best routes? I just told you I'm gonna send from the farm to the handler, right? Imagine 2 points from Davis to Sacramento. How many different ways can you go from Davis to Sacramento? I'm sure many different ways. I know there is a couple of good ones. That's what we're trying to find out, right? Exactly, right? That's why it is the best OD pairs, right? We're trying to find the best routes between 2 different points, and then we need to optimize to ensure that those really are the best routes, right? What determines the best? You're gonna like, I know I'm doing this, and you're saying, oh, just money, come on, how about the environment? We looked at that too, so just relax, okay? We're gonna show you. We're gonna show you. There are 2 modules responsible for generating candidates in FTOT, the GIS module and the optimization module. And this is pretty much how FTOT looks like. We have different inputs, the transportation network, which is the all of continental United States, right? A big, very big network. Origins and different production amounts, destinations and demand, right? Because it's a pull system, the demand pulls the product, and different biorefinery locations if you have them. FTOT, the way it was coded and the way we generated and we fixed some of the optimization components of FTOT, can also give you candidate locations. It can tell you this will be a really great location to put a biorefinery if you want to minimize your cost in X, Y, and Z, right? So it can do all of that. So it goes through this first route of GIS, and then it runs the optimal flow patterns, and then identifying candidate locations if you want it to, and it gives you interim data generated. What does that mean? If you're gonna send goods from Davis to Vancouver, okay? How would you go about it? Should we go northish? Or should we go south, then go to Florida, then come back up to New York, and then maybe like do something like that? Can you do it? Sure you can. But this first route, when it generates this interim data, it gets rid of all the portions that are not feasible, right? What will not make sense? It cuts that out. It gives you the most you want to go west. If you're going to go from Davis to Vancouver, is probably going to be somewhere around, say, Utah, maybe the eastern border of Utah. Anything besides that, I'm not going to take it into account because it's not going to make any sense. Then it runs the optimization one more time to give you your optimal routes and optimal locations. Here's that network. It's a fun network to work with. It takes a couple of days to run this, right? So that you can actually find the optimal locations. You have your intermodal facilities, your waterways, your rail, your roadways. We also take into account, since we're dealing with fuel, what else did we take into account as a mode of transportation? Here's your exam. Do we give grades on this exam? What is it? What other mode? Air, I like that, but probably it'll be too expensive for our purposes. I like it. It's not that urgent for me to consider air, but what else? What can be real cheap? Pipeline, absolutely correct. Pipeline, right? It doesn't show here, but we did take pipelines into account because they are very effective in moving fuel type of and it's here actually. Look, the answer was actually I have my exams open book, so I know my students get a kick out of it when I say the answers are in the book. But the answer was right here. All right. Here is how we built these different scenarios to analyze what would be possibly some of the optimal scenarios. Some of our partners that we work with had some ideas of, hey, I know where my goods are going to come from. I know where some of my crushers are going to be. It looks like there's a good crusher in Mississippi on that southeastern component. I know where there's a good biorefinery. Look, Tampa, yay, we want to use that. No, we just put it there, but it's a biorefinery. There's one in Mississippi, there's one in Valdosta. And then, of course, where's my money coming from, right? And then as you look at these, you know, some of them are going to Los Angeles. Look, LA wants to buy some of this biofuel, right? And maybe Tampa Airport, International Airport wants to buy it. Maybe Orlando International Airport wants to buy it. But they had ideas of who their clients may be and what some portions of different supply chain nodes that we can be using. Agrisoma are the ones who held the rights to growing carinata in the United States. And they had a different set of partners that they had in mind, right? So they said, tell us out of these supply chains, which one is gonna make me the most money, right? Here's what we did. We had our inputs, my raw material producers. We had our processors, the crusher, and then the biorefinery. And then we had our outputs where I send them to different destinations, right? Just Excel spreadsheets talking to one another, and then FDOT doing all the code of FDOT doing all the hard work of deciphering all this data. Now you're gonna tell me one thing. You're gonna tell me, because everyone has been paying great attention, right? I said I'm not gonna call on people, but maybe don't trust me. Carinata, great. Yes, I get it. Raw material producer, carinata. But what is this? What is Greece? That's a movie from 1970s. Greece, what is it? When you go to Burger Kings and Wendy's and stuff like that, they have these grease traps, right? Do you know anything about these grease traps? Mm-hmm. The used grease goes in there and eventually it gets disposed of. I know, I see faces like, ooh, disgusting. Yeah. You can take that grease and take it to a biorefinery and run it through different processes, and you can create some of these also. What? Right? Ooh, circular economy. Yes, you can do it. And why do we care about this for the initial 4, 5, 6 years of this project, this supply chain? Because we can't grow carinata enough. It turns out that the farmers are skeptical of planting new crops that they don't know anything about, right? So it's going to take some time to build the supply chain to its full content. And until then, you need to ensure that you can actually keep on running this supply chain until it becomes a self-sustaining store. Right? Interesting. This is how the final product looks like, right? The optimal supply chain network of the, you can see the whole map. I just cut this thing out. But here's my production areas for carinata, southeastern to the Texas area. And then I have my crusher, I have my biorefinery, and then I have my end products. And they are going with different modes of transportation that makes the most sense. Okay? That's what we did in this project. You can see that some of these goods are being barged, if there's a barge option available, right? Which we make it available. Or seaborne direct transportation. We gave it that choice. We had to come up with, of course, all of the estimates of how much goods transportations cost with different modes of transportation, right? You tell it, otherwise the model doesn't know. You have to plan this before you can actually run it, right? We were not satisfied with all that. We said, "Ooh, look, Buddha said one picture is worth 1,000 words." So we're gonna put that into Tableau so that maybe we can do better analysis or better visualization. The thicker the lines, the more the goods are flowing, right, in gallons. And then here are my colors for each of these products. And then I said, that is not enough. I really would like to see what modes of transportation are being used. These are just for purposes or for your visual purposes. There's of course many of these, but this can also tell you what of these are all different runs of the model and what type of transportation modes that we are using for each of these different scenarios. With that, I know you want to know the drum roll what the answer is, and the answer was the third scenario. And looking at this for a whole year, your overall transportation for our scenarios to keep the supply chain running was about $28 million. Not a small amount, right? So hopefully you're making a lot of money out of this. And we calculate the money that they were going to make to around $150 million or so. That's revenue, not profit, right? So this is coming directly out of that. But we also said that, how about it was carinata only? No grease, right? It will not be sustainable, but we just want to see it. And it was still costing about 19 million just to run the carinata, which still will not be exactly sustainable because they won't have enough product to run it, to sell, right? And then, thankfully, the optimizer, we were able to work with our colleagues at Volpe Center, and we added a total CO2 emission calculator in there as well. That corresponds to the modes of transportations being chosen to be able to run this. And we got about 20 million kilograms of CO2 that corresponds to that scenario 3, right? So we selected that scenario as being the best scenario out of the. That scenario had specific supply chain nodes. Do not forget, right? The moment you change something, everything changes. You have to rerun the models. So that was one of the projects. Any questions? Now I'm gonna go really fast. No. All right, so that was developing a supply chain network, right? Hopefully that made you think about, oh yeah, I never thought about when there is no network, there is no supply chain, what do I do, right? You have to go back to the drawing board to understand the full thing. We had to meet with forestry professors from University of Florida to understand carinata, because when they told me, can you model carinata supply chain? I said, who? Right? I had no idea what carinata is, right? I told them we can model any supply chain, but we need to do some research. So it took us about 2 months to 3 months to fully understand the supply chain before we could even think about putting nodes together. Okay, so the second project that I wanna highlight is evaluation of Florida's inbound outbound truck freight imbalance. What does that mean? That means Mickey Mouse likes to eat a lot but doesn't want to send anything back. Right? We are a consumer state. We have a lot of tourism, therefore we bring a lot of goods in, but we cannot fill all of those trucks to send goods back. Is that an issue? What other state can be like that? Not you. You passed. Hawaii, right? Hawaii is a consumer state too, right? And therefore, things are what? If I can send goods back, the logistics company can only charge me hopefully for one way, right? Because they are bringing goods back. But if they cannot charge me for the way back, guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna charge me both ways. And they're gonna just go back empty, but I paid for it already, so they don't care. They can go faster even. Don't say. I'm being recorded. I'm joking. Safety first, right? So a bread can cost $3.50 in Tampa, but in Atlanta, that same bread can cost $3.25. And that 25 cents is your logistics back from Florida to wherever it's going back, right? So interesting concept, but suddenly you realize, oh shoot, we better send some goods back, right? So we wanted to look at how can we possibly alleviate some of this trucking imbalance, right? a lot of words, but we just wanted to reduce that inbound, outbound trade, trucking imbalance. So basically, if I didn't bring everything with trucks and maybe increase seaborne freight coming to Florida, since Florida has 15 deep water seaports, not any other state has it in the United States, right? 15, right? Huge. But it's also like having 15 kids because they all want something from you. They all want attention and money. So what happens? Compared with Georgia, Georgia has 2. Savannah as being the third biggest container port in the United States, and then Brunswick, but they do a lot of roll-on, roll-off cars, right? From Europe and all that. They're being sent there, rolled off, and then sold. And that's why now you realize, ooh, that's interesting, because if you look at that north of Georgia, south of Tennessee area, there's a lot of car manufacturers there also. So now you realize, everything makes sense as a supply chain, right? So anyways, so we wanted to see if we can directly ship to Florida rather than ship to Savannah, ship to Norfolk in Virginia, ship to New York, New Jersey, and rail some things or truck some things down. Can we directly ship to Florida? Will that make sense? Well, everything has to come to this, sadly, right? Money, money, money. So we wanted to quantify volumes and categorize types of freight that are destined to Florida, right? Not just any state, to Florida, because we're trying to alleviate Florida's problem. Evaluating logistics efficiency and effectiveness gains for shippers by changing these shipments from competing ports to Florida ports, and identify key factors for shippers' port choice, what makes them tick. Why are you sending it to New York, New Jersey, Sarah? These are being eaten in Miami or Orlando. Why don't you send it to Miami directly? And Sarah says, that's how we've been doing business for 10 years. Is it a fair answer? Sure. But if I show some numbers to Sarah that she can be saving $5 million a year by changing to shipping to Miami directly and still meet her timelines, she will say, I'm listening, right? So that's what we were after with this project, right? So let's move forward. We looked at some the different databases. We were just having a discussion about FAF with Miguel today. We looked at FAF to see some of these freight movements with truck. We looked at TransSearch, which is the rail component, the rail freight we are interested in also. That's in the TransSearch database. And then, of course, we want to see the port data as well, which was in this Pierce Port Import Export Reporting Service database. We looked at different tonnages for different ports in Miami and for some ports that we are competing with, right? LA, LB, we looked even at goods being shipped from, say, Asia to Los Angeles, Long Beach, and then railed all the way to Florida. Can we make an impact on that? We looked at, of course, the eastern ports and the Gulf ports. You see how slyly I just said Gulf ports and I didn't even get into naming the Gulf. I just want to point it out. Port of New York, New Jersey, Port of Mobile, Louisiana, New Orleans, Houston, and Port of Savannah. As you can see, number 1 in volume does not always mean number 1 in TEUs, right? TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units, right? That's your containers. Your goods are coming in most of the time, but not your other products, right? Such as gravels and sand and this and that. They're all moving by bulk, right? Some ports are good at bulk, and some ports like New York, New Jersey, LALB, and Savannah are good at the number of TEUs, the goods that are being shipped. We use the Mercury Gate module optimization tool that optimizes freight. And what we wanted to run so that we understand, this is Sarah shipping goods to New York, New Jersey. And then from New York, New Jersey, she has rail or trucking contacts that they will bring the goods to Florida so that they can be consumed, because they were always destined to be consumed in Florida. Instead, I want to tell Sarah, don't do that. Directly ship to Miami or Port of Tampa Bay or Port of Jacksonville, you name it. Okay, so that was what we were trying to optimize. This is the Mercury Gate module optimization tool. This is, it connects very nicely into Google Earth so that you can actually get all your distances and calculate all your distances and optimize your distances with different modes. And you get results, right? I'm going to show you the results, but before that, once we calculate all of this, we also needed to talk with the shippers, manufacturers, freight forwarders, the UPSs, the FedExes, and whatnot, and tell them what makes them tick. So we conducted some interviews face-to-face with them to be able to understand their decision-making criteria and key factors for port choice. What makes you send it to those locations specifically, right? And most of the time, there was some of this, and there was some of, we've been doing business that way, we don't know any better, and I trust my contacts and all that. We use a software tool called Envivo to analyze these interviews. And this is what Envivo can give you, things like this. If you feed an interview transcript into Envivo, it can tell you, here are some words that people mentioned a lot, and here are some sub-words that fell into that category, so that we were trying to develop at the end this chart. Key factors for shippers' port choice. Here are the entities we interviewed: manufacturers, freight forwarders, retailers, carriers, and distributors. And here are some key factors that they mentioned. And under each key factor, you can see who said what by the color scheme. Guess what? For distribution centers, it looks like somebody said having distribution centers around the port where I can store my goods are really important for me. Guess who said that? A lot. Distributors, right? Yeah, okay, that makes sense, right? Maybe I didn't need that exactly, but a lot of people, nearly everyone said cost is really important for me. Time, right? I need reliability. Nearly everyone said time is important to me, right? Reliability, customer service, like this is when the goods get to my customers, this is how reliable is the mode of transportation and whatnot, right? Tax incentives, give me tax incentives if you want me to bring my goods to your state and not somewhere else. All of this were different factors that we found out in this study. And at the end, some studies ran for India from the port of Kochi for certain goods. Everything was great. There was landed cost savings, which is specific savings. That Sarah is going to save $2 million in logistics cost by shipping from India to New York versus shipping from India to Miami. And she will also make sure that the time component is not elongated. So it's not going to cost her additional 3 days to save you $2 million. She's also going to either have it at the same exact time or even earlier, right? We also looked at Europe, Rotterdam. There were some articles that make sense, but the LALB did not make sense. So they know exactly what they are doing to do that route by sending goods from Asia to LALB, the port of LALB, then rail most of it, and maybe truck connect the very end last mile. So that is working very, very well. We could not optimize to show a case that we can make that you go to the Panama Canal and then go all the way and all that good stuff, right? So that is not working. The voyage through Panama Canal with all the reliability issues and also the time it takes to wait, and the funds that you need to go through the canal, it's a lot of effort. So that's the second, and this is the last one, right? Hopefully I can finish in 10 minutes and I don't hold you all the way here to 4, but I did give you a fair warning that I made. Land use analysis to enhance successful logistics activity center development in Florida. Yes.
I just had a question on what you told us before.
Sure.
Because most of the companies you were looking for are for profit, right?
Uh-huh.
So they run hopefully some analysis. So what was the percentage of the companies that you identified were not doing it effectively, cost effectively, and you managed to convince to change?
It's really all of these companies that are sending goods from Kochi that are destined to Florida to anywhere else but Florida are losing the money. It was everyone, quote unquote, because we analyzed the overall volume and the routes. So whoever is sending through those routes that we the OD pairs that we analyzed are actually losing the money that we calculated for those certain volumes that we said. But it's not up to us. We can just put this in the hands of Florida authorities, and it's up to them or the ports to really go and educate then their clients or attract clients so that they can actually believe in this. But there is definitely such a thing as this is how we've been doing business and I don't want to change it. Like $1 million, yeah, I don't know. Because they don't believe that they may have the reliability component there. What if something goes wrong, right? Then it's gonna cost me much more than $1 million you're trying to save me, right? But if you can save $5-10 million a year, then people are listening, right? Because they wanna get some gain, because they realize if something goes wrong, I can spend 2, 3, 4 million to rectify it, and I'm still saving 6, whatever. So this is the calculations that people are making. That's a good question. Yes. Oh, sorry.
No, there's another.
All right, ladies first.
I have a question. Like, do you track what happened after this, like, at least these two projects that you explained before ended? Like, in some way, there are any impact from those projects?
All right, good question, right? What happens after you complete these projects? I just cash in and leave. No. For the first project, they are in the midst of trying to get a buy-in from the farmer community to develop this supply chain. It's not as easy as it seems. You need the product, right? We showed them it can work, now the business aspect. So now they need to figure out how do they really organize the operations of it. The operations management is totally different, right? Because you need that raw material to be able to even start talking about it. Most of the facilities that we analyzed are actually in business. They are existing facilities for some other farm product type of goods. But they can always, of course, blend this in if they have the capacity. Capacity was something else that they wanted to analyze in a phase 2 of this project, which they haven't come around to talk to us about that yet. But those facilities that they want, they can tell you, we don't have capacity to process your carinata. Then what do you do, right? Do we incentivize them to increase their capacity so you can still use the same facility but put through your carinata? Or do you go somewhere else to another facility, or you build your own facility? Because at the end, in the long run, that may be the best thing for you anyways, is a business, because you can control all the costs. But that is a whole different analysis. This was just for us to give them optimal logistics costs so that they can get a planning. This was the forest level, and there's still a lot of tree-level work that needs to be done. Right? The time, waiting in line analysis, the time analysis and all that, that needs to be included. But we are at their mercy because they are the ones who's gonna build this supply chain or not. But US was excited about this.
Yeah, so one of the conclusions for the study on the where to ship was that you could reduce the empty truck travel. So there are no empty travels. Did you also look at the shipping side then?
Really?
If I now get empty ship travel because from the port of Florida, maybe I don't have things to ship back.
Good. We did. So we looked at how much goods that, especially through the different commodities that I highlighted there. We looked at if they will weigh out in a truck or volume out in a truck, and then we calculated that many goods, how many trucks it would take that you can actually alleviate bringing them in, versus now you're only doing a inter-city or inter-Florida type of a distribution. So we did look at that. I don't have the numbers. I didn't put it in these slides, but I have them and I'm happy to share them with you.
Yeah, but also for the ships then, so what is going to happen? So I would imagine if the ship is going to the larger port, which was more in the northern part, I don't know which was, it was Atlanta, whatever.
Jacksonville?
That it brings goods, but it also taking some stuff back then to Europe or whatever.
Correct.
But at the port of Florida or Miami, maybe there's no goods that they could load and ship back. So what's happening there?
That's good. So they'll be taking empties back, similar to what we see in the Los Angeles Long Beach.
Yeah.
But they will also be charging a certain tick extra component, which we took into account in our calculations. But that's a good. So they won't be exactly taking. There was another study that we are discussing now with the Florida enterprise entity, which is the economic entity, on how do you tap into some strengths of Florida, such as biomedicals and whatnot, so that they can actually increase. And if you can increase those biomedical components, then you can possibly have something to ship back which will even more reduce the cost of shipping. But that's a very important and great
Okay,
question.
so this was a trade-off between then reducing the empty travel for
Correct.
trucks against empty shipping.
Correct. But we are thinking of the next step. So there's just so many components of it. Doing it in one project is not always feasible. All right. Going once, going twice? Yes.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, so you looked at the greenhouse gas emissions from like empty truck travel versus empty shipping?
Yeah, we looked at the carbon dioxide emissions, correct.
Oh, okay, what did you find?
Not exactly truck.
Uh-huh.
We just basically calculated per the modes that were selected on the optimal routes, what would be the overall carbon dioxide emissions that you will generate as a part of the supply chain in 1 year.
Okay.
That's what we calculated. And we were doing scenario analysis, so we basically went for the lower CO2 emissions because this is a biofuel project. And we wanted it, okay, yes, we care about the cost, but we also care about the environment. Doing a biofuel
Oh, yeah.
project, you don't wanna be.
Second project, like when you're thinking of trucks leaving Florida empty versus ships leaving.
Oh, no, we didn't look at the carbon dioxide emissions for that specific project.
Oh, okay,
No,
okay.
but again, so those trucks that are coming, they're coming longer routes, right?
Uh-huh.
So if you would actually switch to the seaborne mode,
Yeah.
you're gonna be, especially with the way that the ships, the newer ships are right now, that carry higher TEUs and whatnot, you're gonna be significantly reducing the carbon dioxide emissions if we ended up calculating that. Because you're reducing the longer truck route with seaborne route and just doing a within Florida distribution where you're not gonna be covering that much ground with so many other trucks.
Okay, oh, don't they have longer routes?
They do, but the comparison of ship carbon emissions versus truck carbon emissions with the amount of trucks that we're talking about to carry that many goods, in my personal opinion, there's gonna be a difference. But you do a lot of emissions work. What do you feel about that?
So the mission between the port of origin to either New York or Jacksonville
You're still
to
covering.
Trucking or shipping?
the shipping.
Shipping.
Okay.
It's almost the same, so you're just moving it down. So that will remain the same. It's
Okay.
the land component where you get a lot of savings.
Okay.
Yes, John.
We care about the environment.
Trucks on the road, so it makes also help the congestion.
Correct.
I mean, like,
It makes it safer too. There's a lot of different components that can be looked at, right? The trucks in the roadway put stress on the wrong way, right? So put yourself, if you're driving next to a truck versus you're driving next to a car, there is a little bit of the shy away effect, if you will, right? You slow down or you really wanna just pass that truck and you go much faster. So that's where the safety component comes into play. Yes.
Did you share this work just with the Florida government? I imagine like all of the governments along the highway corridors would be interested.
Correct. We did share it only with FDOT because they were the sponsor. But I think all of the final reports are actually published in the FDOT's website, the research center website as well.
Okay.
It's their government property. The ones that they don't want to publish, I cannot do anything about that.
And some states hate this type of research because they may lose market share on the imports or exports from the ports.
But like North Carolina or something, like, are they happy the empty trucks are driving through, destroying the roads?
No, but this brings more jobs than the trucks.
Okay.
Some of those truckers live on those states that actually are in
Oh.
between,
Okay.
right? So they switch trucks and all kinds of interesting things are happening between in that spectrum. All right, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. We'll see how long. You ask the questions, I'm happy to answer. So we wanted to look at some land use analysis as well, right? This was gonna resonate some of the work that I showed in that one slider, but we wanted to look at location theory and find suitable land parcels with very high or high LAC development potential, which can attract companies to invest and set up their businesses in Florida. Again, back to that Florida is open for business initiative that I mentioned. Different steps for the sake of our timeline, I'm gonna skip that. But we did a large literature review to go back into the literature. We looked at some Florida-specific studies to see what type of factors play into location analysis, location selection. And then we looked at, of course, the rest of the world, which all of these different factors actually show up in the literature. And we can look at weather, right? So I want to move to a good weather location. Why do I want good weather where somewhere I build the LAC? Maybe I want my best executives to locate to that location and they want to have a good weather maybe, right? Why do I want local supplier quantity, quality, labor cost here versus labor cost in Nevada? I don't know exactly, but if I were to make a guess, I would think that labor cost in Nevada is maybe a little bit cheaper, right? And I'm about in the same area that I can service the same area. Maybe I wanna move my facility to Nevada side, but close to the border. So I pay Nevada taxes, Nevada labor cost. I get about the same local supplier quantity and quality. I don't know exactly about the weather, but you get the idea, right? So now I can maybe buy more land, right? Land cost must be somewhere in there, right? In Nevada, I can offer bigger bang for my buck than maybe California. I don't know. Last time I talked with some folks in the Lake Tahoe very recently area, they said, "Oh, Nevada side is getting expensive too, because all the California people are moving here." I said, "What? I was gonna make an investment." Bro, all right, so hydrology, right? In Florida, it's a big deal. If you flood the people downstream from you because you develop the land, we'll see you at court, right? Oh, good luck, right? So we took all of this into account to understand how a successful LAC may look like. Then we did a very large survey, about 500 plus respondents to this survey, and we asked them things about, hey, we have different facilities in the specific location side of logistics activity centers. How close would you rather be to a freeway? How close would you be to a state or US roadway, intermodal logistics center, direct rail track access? What is this? Direct rail track access. Not many people have that, right? That's when you have a facility and you have rail tracks right behind. So you can actually load those cars with your goods and then you whistle, the locomotive comes, hooks it up and takes it away. Great. How many facilities have that? Some. Big enough. There's a facility in Jacksonville, Florida for Budweiser that has exactly this, right? So they can easily get their goods with rail to where they need to be. Seaports, air cargo facilities, whatnot. How close do I want to be? I want to be 5 miles to it, 7.5, 10 miles. And the closer I am to that facility, the better for my success rate as the LAC, because that means I'm paying less, right, for logistics. That's what we were after. And then we developed some buffer weights for very high. Being close to a freeway is 26% weighted out of all these other facility types. Being closer to a seaport facility, 12%. We asked all of these in the survey to different freight professionals, both in the public and private sector. And then we said 100% will give me very high, all the way to 74%. Between 74 and 41 will be high, moderate. You get the idea after this, okay? So that's what we did. Then we were able to code all of these different heats into a heat map in ArcGIS. That looks like this. Very high is red. I know red is normally not good, but we wanted to see it. So we said very high is red, high is orange, yellow is moderate, green is minimal. So everywhere I see heat on this map, I am saying that has that level of LAC development potential, right? Once I do that, I came back and I said, okay, we want to see where existing facilities are located on this map, because I want to do a industry check on this. And we saw approximately 92% match to what we were trying to achieve here with moderate, high, and very high with the current existing facilities that are LACs in Florida. And we said, okay, maybe we're doing a good job, but we were not doing a good job enough, because in this map, you can build, or I'm saying that, look, Lake Okeechobee has a high LAC development potential, but it's a lake, so you can actually build on it, right? So I said, I'm gonna go back and take all the environmental lens wetlands, military lands. Let's see. This is MacDill Air Force Base, right? I'm not gonna build a logistics activity center there. So we went and took that out. So we were able to take all of these things out, so it looked like a Swiss cheese our map, right? Compared to this first map, where I had no constraints, I just analyzed everything purely by the criteria we developed. And then I took out a lot of good things, right? Florida protected lands, military lands, already developed lands and whatnot. And once I do that, I'm able to see that all of these areas that Jacksonville, Port of Jacksonville, all of that cluster around that is hot land because there is warehouses, there's all kinds of manufacturing facilities because I have direct access to seaboard, right? And if you look at facilities in Jacksonville area, you're gonna see that this area is very lucrative. I have I-10 going in this direction. I have I-95 going in this direction. I have a seaport here. I have some major warehouses here. Hot stuff, right? So the map makes sense. I-4 corridor. If you're not familiar with it, Tampa to Orlando, I-4 corridor, a lot of logistics activities happening. Port of Tampa Bay, there's Port of Canaveral over here. So it connects very well. I'm going towards Fort Myers, Naples area. This area is all communities that consume, right? A lot of retirement communities, a lot of communities that do tourism. There's a lot of logistics activity facilities there. And again, the Miami area, I guess I don't need to exactly say something about that, right? But this is the Miami Fort Lauderdale area where I again have a big seaport, a lot of access to I-95, I-75, and all those good stuffs. So we basically said, okay, this is great. I can basically drop a pin anywhere in the Florida map, and then I can tell you the logistics activity success center or success rate. Is it a very high success possibility? If you build a logistics activity center there, is it a high, is it a moderate, whatnot? Okay, that's great. But then we wanted to take it to the next level and said, can we analyze some specific parcels that actually have large areas, acreages that you can actually build these facilities and also have the land use, right? That is compatible, LAC compatible land use on this side. It has a very high LAC development potential and it has immediate, as you can see, freeway access right next to it. So it has a easy ingress, egress, but that's already built in to my LAC potential criteria also, but you can see that it makes sense with this specific parcel here. So we looked at, okay, I think this is a good note I got for myself, is the low hanging fruits, right? What are some low hanging fruit parcels that Florida can possibly attract some big investments with? So that was what we are after. And I think with that, I'm gonna stop talking, and I didn't hold you until 4, right? Or no, not 4, 3, sorry. I still can't get my timing right.
Both are true.
That's right. Any questions?
3 or
4 somewhere, right? It's 5 o'clock somewhere. All right. Any question on that last bit? Here's my email address. If you don't want to ask your question now, but you think about it later, or you want to reach out to me for any other reason, you want to just talk about the time difference between California and Tampa, feel free to reach out to me. And thank you for your attention. I appreciate your time. Let's do a selfie. Can you do a selfie? Yeah. We do a selfie, right? All right, everyone, somehow get in there. There you go. All right, very good. All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. Or you have any questions?
Yeah, well.
We technically have 10 more minutes.
Go. We have time.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, I really like it. According to your last research, which was focused on land use, I wonder if you analyze also some policies, like local policies besides the land use specifically. For example, we were analyzing like incentives from some specific cities, like tax incentives or things like that. So that could maybe make more attractive that specific area. So I don't know if you
So
check.
in a
that
previous
out.
study, we looked at that nearly every component of Florida has some sort of a tax incentive. So we did a study back when, actually, when I started probably at Qatar, and we thought about that wasn't like such a important factor for specifically Florida at least, right? In Florida, you have options, but compared to say Georgia and whatnot, they still offer tax incentives. I used to go to this thing called Georgia Logistics Summit, and they also give you tax incentives. They say 10 years, 50% tax, or 10 years, no tax. Just come to Georgia or just come to Tennessee. So a lot of the states actually do these, what I call not so out of the box offers. But for this specific study, we haven't looked at the incentives because we thought that Florida, if they know they want to come to Florida as a huge market, third populous state, they're gonna come to Florida, and little pocket change is not gonna. Florida is also a no state tax state, so there's a lot of incentives already built in that we haven't looked further. We basically looked at land uses that can handle or the commercial, the industrials, whatnot. That we looked at all of the land uses, and the ones that fit the bill, we included in the study, but we haven't specifically looked at. But I'll share with you the report that from that first study, because we did at some point interview people and said, what would make you move to a certain location? So let me undust that and send it to you.
Oh, thank you.
Sure, yeah.
Well, I have a question, mostly on the land use and thing with the supply chain analysis for the location. Did you include any risk for natural hazard like hurricanes in your analysis?
So not this project, like basically, like Florida is you're gonna get hurricanes whether you like it or not, right? There is no one part of Florida that I don't think a hurricane has not passed through at this point, right? So that just like comes with it. That's like, that was a weather component. So in the weather component, we're taking into account, yes, Florida has good weather, but there's also a resiliency component. But we haven't, like this, what the resilience analysis was not a part of this as a component of supply chain. So no is the quick answer to that. But if you move into Florida, you know at some point hurricanes are gonna knock on your door, right? But again, that's the chance of that happening over a 10-year period. And the money you're gonna be making overall, and you have insurance and all that, you still need to have anywhere else. You're gonna not exactly. That's not gonna be such a big deal for you, right? But yeah, maybe you wanna stay away from some certain areas. Though, looking at some results. Yes.
Thank you so much for this presentation. The only thing popping up for me in mind is investment banking. How does all this information being public protect investors from issues very 5 years, for example, with insider trading and things like that?
So this is an analysis that allows investors or basically folks who are going to open a business in logistics in Florida to make a more of an educated guess / investment, right? It doesn't necessarily fall into, it's available publicly. It doesn't, it's not hidden from anybody else. So it doesn't create a conflict of interest where they're only sharing it with a certain group of people. So in that sense, since it's publicly available information, then we don't have any conflicts of interest. Anybody who wants to get this information can get it and they can share. To be honest with you, Florida is not necessarily specifically targeting certain companies. Of course, they want the bigger ones, but they want just companies to come in because eventually they're going to pay taxes, right? And they're going to employ people. There's a multifaceted component of this. But I don't think that there are implications in such cases that is gonna have an impact. Like Amazon came to Ruskin, Florida, which is from Tampa towards Orlando in somewhere halfway. And when they came, when we looked at where they located, it's a very high LAC potential area, like from our analysis. So of course, they do their own analysis, they know what they're doing. But this allows basically Florida to go and advertise different portions of Florida to companies that would like to come and move. So I don't think it doesn't give anyone an unfair advantage, I guess what I'm trying to say.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, go.
That is not in what you came to present. But considering that Florida and California are different,
That's a nice way of putting it.
can you share with us a little bit about how the general transportation system is there? What from a sustainability focus?
Sure.
Can you enlighten us what have Florida done or not done from what you see in other places?
Sure. Good, tough question. Cut the recording. So Florida actually, interestingly, has been from the start very pro electric cars. We actually had one of the test beds early on where there were only certain test beds, and California was one of them. Florida had an FDOT has been really innovative, trying to understand what this electrification of the fleet, a certain component, is gonna do. Now, Florida is still working on this and trying to get ready for the electrification, but the population in Florida is still like if I were to think about the overall personal the personal vehicles, about I would say 30% or so, 25 to 30% of them are electric vehicles. I see a lot of electric vehicles in the traffic stream. And again, in the bigger cities, most of it given, not exactly in rural areas, but there is a push, there is a lot of electric or the solar energy is being used. I'm seeing a lot of solar panels going up in homes and all that, which is going to have a certain aspect of eventual electrification, but it is not. And again, that's where I think maybe Florida and California differs, but it's not the state's priority to electrify the. It's up to the citizens to decide, and it's up to the companies. If a company decides it works out for them to electrify their fleet, like Amazon vehicles that are driving, they are Rivian vehicles in Florida as well. I'm sure it's the same here. Amazon chose to do that. It works for them. And Florida said, great, fantastic, do it. But they are not necessarily incentivizing it. Let me just put it that way. If you calculate, if companies calculate and it works out for them, great. If not, the state is not pushing for it. My understanding, and you can correct me, California actually incentivized some of this, and actually to a certain level mandates. There's a 2035 mandate and whatnot, if I'm not mistaken. So that's where I think the two states differ. Because in Florida, in California, if you want to choose to electrify, sure you can, right? But actually, the state mandates that you have to electrify after a certain point. In Florida, we don't have that. Did I do a good job of explaining?
Nice.
All right. Any other questions? My email is right there. An email away. I have nothing better to do than answer emails. So just please send me emails.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.